So I'm gonna skip over this stuff. Computer's slow. I do want to point out that if you're a CARTA student, we have a brand new career webpage. We now have individual career websites for all the degree programs in CARTA. So in journalism communication, this is the new communication page. It's got a live RSS feed from Handshake. So that is real-time data. You can make an appointment with me there for career counseling, resume reviews, etc. So I wanted to just point that up. And if you have any questions about that, get with me on email. So here's the college-y definition of what a resume is. I mean, you could probably guess that. So I'll just ask some quick questions. Let me open the chat here. So are these reasons to have an effective resume? Like, what do you think are the most, like, what stands out to you? And I think you can unmute if you want to talk or just throw it in the chat.
The final one, to demonstrate your knowledge, skills, abilities, interests, and passions. It's like an umbrella bullet. It encompasses everything. Yeah, absolutely. So all of these are, hold on, my computer's slow. They're all absolutely the reason to have a resume. But if you boil it down, the only reason to have a resume, the only purpose a resume serves is to get you an interview. Period. Stop. So I've turned the rest of these into questions. You know, why would you want to do all these things? Well, to get an interview. That is what a resume does. Period. That is all it does. So if you apply to any job where, say, there's 50 resumes for a given position, internship or a full-time job, what do you think is the company or the agency's first objective when screening those resumes?
Is it to look for imposters?
It is. They want to see who vented, I think. And my 17-year-old daughter has got me into this, so it's actually really fun. So what about this answer? So they want to look closely at all those 50 people and really see like who is the most qualified. What do you think? Does that sound like a good reason?
Sounds good.
Okay. It's not.
No.
The first thing they're trying to do is to get rid of as many resumes as possible. So if 50 people are applying, they don't want to deal with 50 people. They want to get down to the best 10. And then from there, maybe interview 4. So the first thing they're trying to do is screen you out. And that sounds cold and awful, but it's the cold hard truth. So the reason that you put attention to your resume is to don't give them an excuse to do it, which means dumb stuff like typos, and we'll talk a little bit about other stuff. You want your resume to make it through to where you get an interview, because remember, that is the single thing that a resume does. Okay, so I don't know, and my mom was in advertising and she used to talk about this a lot, that the skill and in writing copy and design for billboards is like it's an art. It's actually, I think when she was doing it, this was in the 50s, like Mad Men era, 60s, 50s, 60s. You know, it was sort of the same thing that you think about in social media today. So I want to take a look at these billboards. Like so you're on the turnpike or on 95 cruising along. These billboards are flying past you. Which ones of these do you think are effective in terms of design?
I would say the Burger King one.
Yep. Okay.
My favorite is
the one that says your wife is hot. You're like,
that's
what?
my favorite.
And then you read the information.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So why are the other 3 not effective?
There's like too much information.
There's way too much text. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So You're not going to pull over to the side of the turnpike and go, oh, let me read this. Best boutique motel in the north. No, you're going by, if you're me, you're going by at 70. If you're my wife, you're going by at 80. And these things are zipping past you. So they have that much time for them to kind of punch their way into your awareness. The top left one is kind of a famous one. It's been copied actually around the country. It's clever, it gets you to look at it. And then, you get air around the clock. Oh, okay, so it makes a connection. The one on the bottom right, super easy to read. It registers that fast. The rest of them, they're not even gonna catch your attention. And if they do, they're gonna be past you before you even have the slightest idea what they're about. So if you use that same idea, if a human being is reviewing your resume, and we'll talk about, there's two main ways that resumes get reviewed. How long does a human being who's looking at your resume, like you've emailed it to them, or they actually have them printed out, or however, how long do you think they spend looking at it?
Like 2 minutes tops.
If you're lucky. So remember that they want to get rid of you. I know that sounds harsh. What they're trying to do, and this is assuming like a stack of 50 resumes where none of them are known. And I'm not talking about like you've got this great connection on the inside and you email them your resume. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just plain blind screening, 2 to 6 seconds. And what they're doing, and this is proven by research, they've done eye tracking. The person's eyes, well, you can see my mouse, right? Is it moving? So they fall on the header and then they zoom down the left margin. And what they're looking for is this. They're looking for basically the things that stand out the most are the things that you did. So they go right down the left side and they make a very quick determination on, does this person have the breadth of experience? Well, first of all, do they, if your degree, if it's required that you are a graduate, do you have the degree? What's your degree in? And then what is your experience? So they're making that fast of potentially a determination. You can think of resumes kind of like real estate too. So like the higher, it's like, you're way too young for this, but like in newspapers, they used to talk about above the fold. So everything that's above the fold is, the headline, the main stories. Resumes are kind of like that. So this is kind of the sweet spot of the most, where so the ability to make an impression is stronger here, and it kind of trails off a little bit as you go down. So you can think of it like use a resume or a real estate connection here. I used to live in Cutler Bay, so that's why I put it at the bottom. But think of your resume that way. So like, the top half is really what's going to show off the most. So I have a military background, and this is a saying. I came from the Air Force. It's true in the Air Force. It's true in all the services. It's a saying, officers don't meet promotion boards, records do. So today it's done electronically. In the old days, it was done with paper. So it is your job to make sure that your record is up to date, meaning it has all the evaluations, it has all the decorations, it has everything it's supposed to have. It is completely on you. If your record doesn't, you could be the #1 officer being considered the absolute best in the entire Air Force. But if your record isn't up to date, they don't know you. And that's what meets the board. You don't meet the board. So think about that same idea when you're thinking about your resume. That piece of paper or that PDF it's your little messenger that goes out into the world. So it's super important that it makes that impression as quickly as possible. So here's just in general, like you're seeing an extremely boring looking resume. I'm going to tell you why that's important in a second. Also why it's not, you don't have to limit yourself to that. Here's the quick rundown. I'll make sure these slides are emailed out so we don't have to dwell on this. The big things are just like typos are deadly. Again, don't give them a reason to screen you out. And I've seen some hilarious ones. Actually, the most hilarious ones are you have your spell check on, and you have a word that is still, it's actually an English word, but it's one letter off from the word that you want. I highlighted consistency because this slide that I inherited from CTD is not consistent. It has a space there. The bullet is over to the side. So that kind of stuff, when you're so familiar with your resume, someone who's not, all of that graphic stuff just pops right out into their face. If you look at this example, the bullets are pretty much lined up. The dates, yeah, kind of, you know, so that kind of stuff is attention to detail. Don't give anyone a reason to reject your resume just on something that easy to fix. So I wanted to talk about, there's two main ways that resumes get reviewed. They get reviewed by human beings. So that is a position where it says it says email your resume and cover letter to, you know, Juan Alvarez, you know, J Alvarez at superagency.com. So you can probably assume, if that's like a small boutique agency, that this is one where people are going to look at your resume. If you see a position at Edelman, you know, it's all over the world, and it says click here to upload your resume and cover letter, you are probably 100% sure that what is going to see your resume first is what's called resume screening software. And what that does is, for the given job or internship, there are keywords that are in that ad and keywords that they're looking for in terms of experience. And what this software does is it reads your resume and it literally counts the number of words or discriminators, and the company has set a threshold. So if your resume has X number and above, cool, you move on. If it has X number and below, or below X, you get eliminated. So there is a reason so I want you to be aware of that. Be very aware of like the context of when you apply for something, how is your resume? And again, I'm not talking about, hey, I've got a contact over there, send your resume to him, he's really waiting to get it. I'm talking about you're applying basically to where you don't have necessarily a contact. Even if you do, I'm getting ahead of myself, hold on. All right, so you all are creative people. So what I'm saying, no, you're creative people. You can't forget the resume on the left. You have to have one that looks like the one on the right. No, that's not what I'm saying. There's a place for both, is what I'm saying. So if you apply to a position where it is less personal, click here to upload, and you believe it's resume screening software, you should have a boring version like over here on the right, ready to go for that. It's easy to be read, because this is a beautiful resume on the left, but that software is going to have trouble with it. It doesn't like colors and blocks and strange characters. It just doesn't know what to do with them. So your chances of getting successfully screened with this very attractive resume on the left in that situation are less. So you want to have both. So when you have, so say, here's my example here, send resume and cover letter to Juan Ramirez. I would send this one on the left. He's going to look at your resume. A person's going to look at it. If it is upload, it's the one on the right. You can use both. So say you have to go through the screening process, you have to upload your resume, but then you do have you have a reference from LinkedIn or Handshake, you know, and you want to say, hey, I just want to let you know I applied for that internship, really excited about it. And oh, by the way, I've attached my resume. Attach the one on the left, because a person's going to look at that. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? So the main thing is just be prepared for both. Yeah, and this is also something to consider. Say you've got I think I may have said this. apologize if I already did. You've got super contacts on the inside at this new agency, but their HR department uses the screening software. The person says, hey, you know, I thought you were going to apply to that thing. And you say, oh, I did. And they said, well, you didn't make it on the list. Meaning they have HR departments increasingly, you know, they have very strict procedures to follow so that they are not in violation of discrimination laws, etc. So they can't just go, oh, hey, here's my list of candidates that I have to look through, but I'm really looking for that person over there that didn't make it. Can you send me their resume? They can't do that in many cases, especially if you apply to the federal government, for instance. Believe it or not, we have done events with the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. They have a very robust graphic design department, very talented graphic designers, and they come and actually they recruit on campus. This is pre-COVID, for communication and journalism, advertising, digital media, fine arts students. So believe it or not, but in that case, you're going to go through usajobs.gov and you're going to have to go through this screening situation. And if your name doesn't pop out on the other side because you sent a resume that didn't get screened, that's unfortunate. Well, you can look at that real fast. The big thing we're going to talk about job entries in a second. Action verbs at the beginning, that's probably the biggest thing I would ask you to take away from here. There's 3 kinds of resumes. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Chronological, functional, combination. The functional, chronological is what you're more familiar with. Functional is if you're at a point in your career where you have experience in a number of different, very diverse sectors. You can sort of group those together, you know, so that is an option for you, probably more down the line as you build your career. So just know that it's out there. These are the basic elements of a resume. Education is at the top. This objective or professional summary, it's optional. You don't have to have one, but if you do one, you got to make it count. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then education, experience. I'm going to tell you why experience is the best header, not work experience or professional experience, just experience. Here's header. The main takeaway here, you don't need to put your physical address anymore because we don't mail letters. You know, you're not going to get a letter that says, hey, come in for an interview. The only reason, and it's also a safety issue, the only reason to include it would be if you're applying, in this case, for a job with the city of Miami and it says, you know, applicants must live within corporate limits of city of Miami. Okay, then prove you live there, but otherwise, not necessary. Keywords, I mentioned that with the screening software. Make sure that your resume has those words on it, and also your cover letter. There are like data analytics is a word, you know, a phrase that has, you know, maybe 10 years ago wouldn't have been there. Make sure your resume reflects those words. And it's smart to build a basic resume that you have in a folder, and then you can do versions of it because you do want to adjust your resume as applicable to a particular position and adjust those keywords. Make sure the keywords in that ad, that job posting, are in your resume and in your cover letter. So I talked about objectives. A lot of people put this right up at the top, right below their header, you know, their information. You can do it. It's not, you don't have to, it's optional. But if you're going to do it, remember it's in the Boca Raton real estate area. So you don't want the top one there. Why am I saying that? Like, what's wrong with that top one in red?
It's me focused. So it's
Yes.
definitely, yeah, it's me focused, and it's super important to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do to bring to the table. This is how I'm going to help the organization. So you have to have a collective mindset, a more generous mindset.
Yep. So You're absolutely right. They don't care about what this job, they know if you're applying for an internship, they know you're applying for it because it's ultimately going to help you in your job search. You don't need to tell them that. You need to tell them what you're going to bring to them. It's also extremely vague. Where I can grow and thrive. And they're going to be, oh, no kidding. That's what everybody wants. So if you're going to do one, do this one. That very quickly, it's very concentrated. 4 years experience in social media management, analytics, client relations, communications plan development, fast growing boutique agency serving Miami's entertainment scene. This is custom built for a imaginary job. And you know immediately what this person wants to do, and you know what the scope of their experience is. That is the kind of impression you want to leave there if you use it. I'm not going to dwell on this too much. Education, this is the basic format. The one thing I will mention, relevant coursework, you can include that below the entry, because if you did significant, especially as you advance in your academic career and you take much more specialized classes, or you have a minor, or you're going for a certificate and you have these very specialized areas, you can list those, and that is going to add value to your resume. So what do you not include? This stuff over here. You don't need the address, you don't need the phone number, you don't need the supervisor's name. On the left is really a template of what you would include with that. You can review this later. So we want bullets. We don't want a narrative. I see resumes where they just write out like a little paragraph of what they did. You want bullets that start with an action verb, a present tense action verb if it's a job you're still doing, and a past tense action verb if it's a job you no longer do. So why did I say experience is the perfect header? You can combine, it is perfectly acceptable to combine paid and unpaid experience in a resume as a college student or a recent college grad, because quite often, I know all of you are super motivated. You're involved in a number of things beyond just paid work. And an employer, they want to know what experience you bring. They don't care if you got paid or not. We try not to put people in unpaid internships, but say you had the most amazing unpaid internship ever, you're not going to bury it down at the bottom under like other experience or stuff I didn't get paid for, or that sort of thing. If you're president of the Black Student Union, you manage a budget, you're planning events, you're doing promotion, you're doing all of these things that are amazing and arguably more professional, high-level professional experience than you worked at Starbucks, you worked at Old Navy. Do not get me wrong, retail or customer service experience is super valuable because you've learned through bitter experience how to deal with people, how to understand their needs. It's great for, you learn sales, so someone who's looking to put you in an agency where you deal with new clients, they know you know how to do that. I'm not saying that is not valuable. I'm just saying you can combine both, and don't shortchange yourself by burying something like this example on the right way down at the bottom of your resume. So I'm going to just talk about when you write your bullets. I'm old, right? So I watch a lot of crime shows, like true crime shows, right? So they'll bring a suspect, this guy, he looks suspicious, doesn't he? I think he does. They bring him in for an interview, and they'll record the interview. So this red bullet up here is what I see on a lot of resumes. Managed clients and kept projects on schedule. Say you worked at Bold, for instance. So say they bring this guy in, they're interviewing him, and they say, hey, so what did you do? I see you worked at Bold. What'd you do? I managed clients and kept projects on schedule. The detective here isn't going to go, okay, close his notebook and go, all right, thanks for coming in. What is he going to do? He's going to ask, well, what types of clients? How many plans did you execute? For whom? How often? What, did you have a budget? Social media, did you do social media? Oh, you managed various accounts. Which ones? Instagram, Twitter? How often did you post? Did you do your own photography? Did the traffic increase while you worked there? So you have to basically sort of interview yourself. We have this, it feels good to go, oh God, what did I do at that last? Well, you know, I managed clients that kept projects on schedule, done. That feels good, but you got to push through it, and you got to come up with bullets like this. What did you do? Well, comprehensive communication plans for 6 entertainment, sales, and travel clients. Creative elements, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, 10,000 flyers. You know, you're getting very specific. You do not want it to read like a job description, like on the job posting. It needs to be about you. You created 5 YouTube channels for 4 clients, you obviously, etc. So it's painful. It is, you know, no one enjoys this, but if you do it once, you will have a wonderful template resume that you can then use and adapt to various opportunities. I'll give you 2 super fast examples. I was talking to a student. He says, one of them was like, he parked cars. It's like car valet or valet parking or something. Acme parking. I made that up because I can't remember. And I said, so tell me about that. I said, oh yeah, it was on South Beach. I'm like, oh wow, I bet that was pretty stressful. I bet you had, you know, some high value cars. Like, yeah, you know, in fact, a lot of times they were staying in one of the ritzy hotels in South Beach or a little bit north. And I'd work with the concierge at the hotel because a lot of times they were wealthy clients from South America, and they wanted, you know, the husband wanted to go deep sea fishing, and the wife wanted a spa day, and I would kind of coordinate all that. And I'm like, dude, like, you didn't just park cars. That is amazing experience. But he thought in terms of, oh, I was a car valet. I parked cars. But he didn't do that. He didn't interview himself. And so now he's got experience dealing with wealthy clients, coordinating events and trips and things like that. That was all hidden in there. No one's going to know. And I had a student who down at the bottom of her resume, I'm making this up too because I can't remember the name, but it was like second chances. I'm like, and she had it like way at the bottom under, you know, additional stuff. And I said, what's that? She said, oh, it's the nonprofit I founded. I'm like, what? So I asked her, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, you know, I had to fundraise. I put on events. I had, you know, 3 different social media accounts. I did photography, all of this. And I'm like, but no one's going to know that. And why do you have it way down in the bottom of your resume? So back to combining paid and unpaid, that's where that needs to go. Any questions about that? Does that make sense? You do not, so I don't see this too much. You do need to be collecting professional references, but they don't go on your resume. You don't put references available upon request. You can type them up on a separate document so they're ready to submit. Typically, employers will check, if they're going to check references, they do it actually after they've offered you the position. A lot of times they'll say, hey, we're thrilled to offer you this position, contingent on a background check and reference check. So have it ready. And always remember, I have this is another saying in the Air Force, it's a small Air Force. You never know who's going to come back into your sphere of influence and be someone that you could call upon, you know, for a reference, for a letter of recommendation. So you're always networking and you're always thinking of don't burn bridges, I guess is the main takeaway there. Here's a quick list of what not to put on your resume. High school, no more high school. After you're maybe a freshman, after that, no more high school. And anything, obviously, there are exceptions to the photograph rule, but in general, what you're doing is companies can't discriminate, of course, on the basis of your physical appearance, but people are people. So it is a good idea. You're not required, I would just leave that off. So here's a quick wrap up. So don't give up your beautiful designed resume, but have that boring version ready also. And do that hard work of interviewing yourself, pulling out all of that specific information that's hiding in there that you don't want to write about because you're like, do it. And keep watch on your industry, the agencies you want, look for those keywords, make sure you're using those in your resume and your cover letter. Be consistent, bullets, etc. Personally, I'm old school. I find more mistakes on documents if I print them and look at them with a pen. You may not be that way because you're way younger. Give them to 5 people. Give your resume and your cover letter to 5 people that have never seen them. Say, I need typos. I need anything you see that looks weird, because you just don't see it after a while. Yeah, so that's basically the wrap up. I know that was super fast. Let me know. Do you have any questions or thoughts on any of that? And if not, then I thank you for your time. And what I'll do is I will put in the chat